Hey everyone, it's Jesse. Glad to be doing another video for you. Today I'm going to walk you through a skill that comes bundled with imdone-cli. It's called the hypothesis-driven development skill. And one of the things it's been doing for me is really making it easier for me to focus on outcomes rather than tasks. And just work on small slices of features that I can get out to the users, to developers who are trying to do the same kind of thing I'm doing, staying focused on outcomes, and using imdone-cli to keep their context shared across their team and for themselves from day to day. I've been doing it myself, keeps me focused, keeps me on task and delivering consistently. I can't tell you how much that's changed in the last month since I've been working on it. I released it a couple weeks back and been loving it so far. My team's loving it. Anyway, let's get down to it. So the skill I want to, or the story that I'm going to work on is called Resume HDD Work Next Day. So right now, the HDD skill takes an argument. The argument is the story key that you want to work on. If you're working with GitHub, it's just a number. If you're working with Jira, it's the project key and a number that your Jira has. So we're going to start off this story by doing that. I added it with the imdone-add skill. You can use the imdone-add command from the command line. I like to work with two terminals opened in VS Code. One is for Codex. I use Claude at work. I really enjoy Codex because the price is right. And it seems to be a little snappier. And I'm doing very, very narrow slices of functionality, so I don't need as much, in depth. I've kind of got it tuned to my code base at this point. So Codex seems to be working really well. Anyway, let's get started. So you're going to get started with the hypothesis-driven development skill. In order to do that, it's really important that you're in your backlog folder. That is the folder where I'm done issues live. That's the folder where your, the bundled skills in .claude and .codex are. It gives you a starting point. It's the origin of the work that you do. And it's living in your project folder, hidden from the Git repository of your project. It's its own Git repo. It travels with you from branch to branch. It's always there, consistent and syncing, managing merges, doing all that stuff. So when you start off Claude or Codex, you need to do it from the backlog folder. So I'm going to start up Codex. And because I added this with the hypothesis-driven development template, I can just, and even if you didn't, if you added a story and it doesn't have the template, your product owner added it, it doesn't matter. When you start up hypothesis-driven development, it will apply the template. So right now I'm going to start up hypothesis-driven development. If I was in Claude, I would start this with a / command. And I'm going to use Scrum 267. And we'll see what Codex thinks of that. I started this video before and the imdone-add skill went a little haywire and got into a loop. Sometimes AI can be a little finicky and get ahead of itself. It didn't finish for itself to finish or wait for itself to finish. So it kept creating things. I had to delete those and left one behind. Okay, so Codex found an HDD templated story with existing artifacts. This skill, well, actually this template creates some artifacts in attachments. You can put anything you want in attachments. Anything that's shared context that you want to give to yourself the next day on a different branch. Maybe, you're working on something between a couple releases. Maybe you need to pick it up the next day, or you're going to hand it off to a teammate or another person in your ensemble. Throw it in attachments. Okay, so I can't write a trustworthy phase 1 draft yet because Scrum 267 is still just a placeholder title and stock HDD template. So it's going to ask some questions now. Is a product owner in the room for this review? I play all roles here, so I'm going to say I play all roles. But if there isn't a product owner in the room, you should answer truthfully because you're going to get some assumptions and risks tacked on because they're important questions your product owner needs to answer. So I'm going to answer to this one, I play all roles, and 2, what's the second question? What is the actual user visible outcome for Scrum 267? Right now, the title reads like a process reminder, not a product or workflow change. One sentence is enough. Okay, so resume HDD work the next day. I want to pick up on the same story from day to day with the HDD skill. Let's see what Codex thinks of this. Should know quite a bit. My cat has zoomies right now, which is strange. He usually only does that in the morning. Okay. So first thing that the HDD skill does is walks you through a hypothesis. We believe that resuming the same story with the HDD skill on a new day will let a single person recover context and continue the next honest step without rereading the whole story or redriving the workflow state. This should improve continuity and reduce restart friction because the HDD artifacts and prompts will make the active phase, current decision, and next action explicit. Primary risk, addressed, usability. If the resume flow is unclear or forces too much rediscovery, the skill will not be dependable for day-to-day story execution. I kind of like that. Let's read what Codex is saying. One critical check before I move to the vertical slice. Is the main success condition resume with less rereading, or do you also want the skill to preserve unfinished draft context across days so the user can trust what changed and why? That already exists in the skill, although I'm still refining it. There are progress notes that are continuously updated. I think what we need to do is shift focus here towards just making sure that it's the same story, that it knows to pick up on the same story. So save the story somewhere in a session file. That's more about the how, but I think I need to say something about, like, I want to save the story, save a pointer to the story from day to day. Let's see what Codex comes up with. The outcome changed in an important way. It's about persisting the active story pointer across days, not just reducing rereading. I'm revising the hypothesis. Okay, perfect. We believe that saving a pointer to the active HD story from one day to the next will let a single person reopen the right story immediately and continue where they left off. Should reduce restart friction because the skill will not depend on the user remember refining the story. Perfect. Primary risk addressed, usability. Save pointer is missing, stale, or unclear. The resume flow will not be dependable for day-to-day story execution. Great. This sounds a lot better. So one critical check before I draft the vertical slice. Should the saved pointer support only one active story at a time, or do you want the resume behavior to handle multiple in-progress HDD stories later? Let's go with a very narrow vertical slice. Let's just say one story. So I should probably say that the skill right now looks for the last updated story, but that's kind of, that's not right. I might have some thoughts about a story. I might be putting feedback on a story. I don't want it to work with the last one I touched. Okay, it drafted a vertical slice. One focus session is the appetite. Perfect. That's what we're doing. When the user runs the HD skill without providing a story key, the skill resumes the single most recently saved active HD story pointer instead of forcing the user to remember the key. Perfect. Expected learning. Whether restoring one saved story pointer is enough to make next day continuation feel dependable without adding multi-story selection yet. Perfect. Out of scope for this slice, choosing among multiple active stories, history of prior stories, or conflict resolution beyond a stale missing saved pointer. I think that's good. Let's check. Critical check. If the saved pointer exists but the story file no longer exists locally, should the skill stop with a clear error or fall back to asking the user to choose a story? I'd say let's just fall back. To asking So if you notice, I'm getting a lot of questions. It's trying to help me. The skill is trying to ask you critical questions before you move on, so we can identify risks early, assumptions early, and get those written into context so we can stay focused. This keeps Claude, Codex from going too wild down a crazy path. And it also helps your team get back to where they need to be, right? So now we're at acceptance criteria. One critical check before I draft validate assumptions. Let's read the acceptance criteria first. When the HDD skill is invoked without a story key and a valid saved active story pointer exists, it resumes that story instead of asking for the key again. Check. When the HDD skill is invoked with a story key and no saved active story pointer exists, it asks the user to choose or provide a story instead of guessing. Excellent. When the skill is invoked without a story key and the saved pointer refers to a story that no longer exists locally, it does not resume a different story silently and instead asks the user to choose or provide a story. Great. When the user starts or confirms work on a different HDD story, the saved active story pointer is updated so the next no key invocation resumes that newer story. I think that works. Let's go. So one critical check before I draft validate assumptions: is it acceptable for the saved pointer to be local only in .imdone-cli HDD-skill.yaml or another local file, or do you expect it to sync through Jira Git across machines? I think local only is just fine, and it'll make things less complex. So let's just say local only in HDD skill. It already found where I wanted to put it anyway. I didn't even have to tell it. So I did. So HDD skill already has a configuration file. So this is where it'll go. And the configuration file right now is just storing reminders to push. So it thinks the kill assumption is storing one active story pointer locally is enough for the real day-to-day resume flow. Okay, it's saying Dianu, it's enough. Check during review. Confirm resuming the last local HDD story without a key is more valuable right now than supporting multiple save stories. Yes. If this assumption is false, the slice will solve the wrong problem. So it's basically telling me what the risk is, right? That's okay. We're going to learn through doing and from releasing software. So I'll be using it. My team will be using it. One short check before I draft success metrics and the demo plan. Do you want the proof for this slice to be purely behavioral in a terminal demo, or do you also want a persisted config example in HDD skill YAML shown explicitly in the demo? I think I want both. Let's do it. I want both. Okay, let's move. I'm drafting both remaining phase 1 proof artifacts now. Okay, so it gave us success metrics and attachments and demo. So let's look at success metrics. It's editing now. All right. What we're measuring: whether the HDD skill resumes the locally saved active story without referring the user to re-enter the story key. Baseline: on a new day, the user must remember or look up the story key before resuming HDD work. Target: when a valid active story pointer exists in HDD skill. Invoking the HDD skill without a story key resumes that story immediately. How to measure: run a terminal demo. Secondary checks. When no pointer exists, the skill asks the user to choose or provide a story instead of guessing. When the pointer is stale, the skill asks the user to choose or provide a story instead of silently resuming. When the user starts work on a different HDD story, the saved pointer and HDD skill updates to that newer story. Outcome evidence needed later. After using the feature across at least 2 separate days of real work, confirm that local pointer restore meaningfully reduces restart friction from the user. This is an important user feedback item, and the HDD skill is told to do this. Like, let's rely on user feedback, not just data. Data is important, and outcome of what it's doing is important, but the user feedback's more important than that. Does it solve a problem? This slice proves resume behavior now. It does not yet prove that the workflow feels better over time without that follow-up usage evidence. So we need that outcome evidence. Great. I'm going to say yes to this and to the demo because I'm guessing it got that right too because everything's looked good so far. It's pretty simple. It's not complex. We're not trying to boil the ocean here. So let's continue. Let's just say yes. So I'm sure you're catching on by now that all of this reference data is a very strong signal to both the people, the humans involved in this work, me right now, but could be my team, and the AI involved in the work. So all of this is staying in context while we're working on the story. So the phase is complete. Should we push to Jira now? I'm going to say, yeah, push. All right, so now this is all going to sync back to Jira. So that all stays fresh. And from here, we're going to move on to implementation. But I'm not sure we need to keep it going at this point. You get the point. If you are a product owner, this is probably as far as you're going to go, right? You should work this HDD skill to this point and then, move on to the next. So if you're keeping the product owner around at this point, they could probably go help another team. If you're like me and you're the product owner and you're the engineer, you're going to keep on moving. But hopefully the developers are starting from a point that's close to this. If not, pull that product owner in. And if you don't have a product owner, be truthful. You need to get the assumptions documented so folks know where you were heading and why. So it's moving on to design and diagram. So I guess you're going to have to stick with me and put up with me for a little longer. So Codex is rather excited tonight to get to work. So it moved past the next phase and it's into design and diagram. What you can do, and I've found that works, is when it asks you to push, just say push and pause if you want to step away. Because it's rather anxious. Codex just wants you to keep going. Claude wants you to keep going. So let's let it go. So right now it's creating a design. It knows where my code lives. And it's going to be updating the Codex skills hypothesis driven development skill. It obviously knows where its code lives. And it's going to want to update this HDD skill YAML and session setup, which talks about that HDD skill YAML. At this point, I don't think that I have a script in this skill that handles. No, we don't have a script yet that handles the HDD skill.yaml. I think it's a good idea to do that now. I've found that having scripts that handle configuration files is a lot better than not having them. So I'm going to before I answer these questions, I'm going to mention that. And you can ignore the questions if you have something to interject that you see that's not quite right, or that you want to add as a constraint. Feel free to type that in, and the HDD skill should take that into consideration and keep on chugging with it. So let's just say now, add a constraint. I want the HDD skill .yaml reads and writes to be wrapped in I'm going to just say Node script. I like it to be Node because it's a Node app. imdone's a Node app, or a Node package that you install globally. So That way I can ensure that that's on the system that this is going to. Otherwise, you'll get a lot of Python. Okay. So I'm going to add that constraint. And you know what? I'm not going to keep you any longer after this. I'm just going to show you a couple of things in the design and the diagram. Okay, so it's updating design. That doesn't change any of the things that came before, because this is a how choice. This isn't a what choice. Okay. Added a node script constraint. So right now it has push, mode, and interval, an active story key, issue path. I'd say let's not include the issue path, because what if the summary changes? If the summary changes, that issue path is going to change. So no to the issue path in the config. Just the key. Okay. So while it's doing that, let's take a quick look at the diagram, because this a lot of times helps understand the design. So the HDD skill will create mermaid diagrams for you, and this one is looking pretty good. Invoke HDD skill with no story key, HDD skill, read active story pointer. All right. Key issue path goes back, verify issue file exists. Let's make sure that it's just putting the key in there. Okay. So this means this design or this diagram, this is inferring that the script is going to handle resolving that issue path, and that's great. I like that. It's just going to end up using imdone for that. Verify issue file exists, issue file found. I'd say the skill can verify. So the skill, or I'm sorry, the script can verify the path of the story and return it to the skill. Let's also ask Codex, let's include the script in the design diagram. This is where having an ensemble really helps, because you'll get the feedback from that group of people, and you can keep on iterating on this until it makes sense to everybody. That's what's important, because I might go to a meeting. I might have to leave for whatever reason. My dog is sick and I have to go to the vet or something. And, they need to be able to pick up where I left off. Okay, so it's editing the design and the diagram. I think at this point, you get the point. I'm going to drop off for now. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and leave your comments. I really want to know what you think when you start using this and how it affects the work that you're doing. Check me out on imdone.io, and you can find the NPM package imdone-cli to get you started. Reach out if you have any questions. You can find my contact on my website. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.